Hi everybody, my name is Sophie and I am a research assistant here at the Center for the Advancement of Military and Emergency Services Research, also known as AMES. And my research is looking at examining the utility of the military service sleep assessment in U.S. veterans. So this research has been presented at the 8th Annual Combat PTSD Conference in San Antonio, Texas, and it also has been presented at the Symposium of Student Scholars at KSU in fall 2023. So as a little bit of background, veterans experience a lot of poor sleep quality, about 37%, and this needs to be addressed to help them later on in their life. So we have two objectives basically of this study. Is one, we want to revalidate this measure, the MSSA, which was created by Dr. Myslevish in U.S. veterans. Dr. Myslevish validated this in active duty, but we want to validate this in veterans. And so our second objective is to examine which military life event most negatively impacted their sleep. And so we formed three hypotheses. One, that our stressful life events in deployment would most negatively impact sleep. Two is that veterans who had one or more deployments would most likely report worse on the measures that we gave them. And the third, that veterans with the history of deployment would more likely to attribute their poor sleep quality to military service. And so the measures we gave them was the MSSA, the PHQ-9, the GAD-7, and the DIRTY. And we created a data analytic plan where we just did independent sample t-test. We did some descriptive statistics and a chi-square. So moving on to the results, we see that basic military training, permanent change of station, and deployment were the three events that veterans ranked as most negatively impacting their sleep. And then moving on to table 1, we see that the t-value is significant in all measures, with the exception of the MSSA, which was a bit concerning, but some literature has suggested that's really not deployment per se that affects our sleep quality, but rather if it's combat or non-combat related. We see that there is an association or there is a difference than expected based on the large chi-square value. And also that figure can kind of demonstrate that a little bit better. And so the key takeaways here is that basic training, permanent change of station, and deployment were ranked as the most likely to negatively impact veteran sleep quality, and that veterans with deployment history were 3.98 more at risk of attributing their sleep problems with military service. And we see this with the standardized residual of 2.4. Of course, with every study comes limitations. The study's population consisted primarily of the Army. We didn't screen for any mental or physical diagnosis that can interact with the perception of any past life events such as age, resiliency, or pre-existing factors. We didn't screen if they had PTSD and things like that. And we didn't also screen for combat or non-combat related deployment stressors. And finally, this is very subjective. This is a subjective sleep quality assessment. So we didn't have any objective sleep assessment as well to assess their sleep. And so just in the future, we want to work on revalidating the MSSA in non-treatment seeking military personnel and continue revalidating this measure.